my friends. Welcome to Healing with the Inner Tarot. My name is Rain. In this series, I will be using this book, The Inner Tarot by Kate Van Horn, as my guide to a 78-episode healing journey that I'm happy to share with you. So thank you so much for being here. I always like to mention that I'm not a therapist. I'm a self-therapy enthusiast, and I have some psychology education in my background. Now, some of the subject matter that we'll be talking about in this series could be triggering for you, so keep that in mind. And if you feel the need to seek professional help, please do so. There are a lot of resources out there. In the description below, I'm including a downloadable PDF workbook with some homework that you can do after watching today's show. Included in this workbook is a tarot spread I created called Observing Your Body and Mind, and that's my gift to you. So let's get to it. Today we're talking about the Six of Pentacles and how we can use this card as a way to heal. The Six of Pentacles is about giving and receiving. It's about fairness, balance, sharing, and generosity. If we look at the card, we see a man holding a balanced scale in one hand, and with the other hand he's giving coins to two beggars on the street. Now, this man is well dressed, and this could represent his wealth and his status, where the two people on the street, they have tattered clothing. The man looks confident, but the two beggars have faces that show despair and desperation. But there is some gratitude in their faces for his generosity. There's a castle in the background, which can also represent his wealth, and that he's in a position where he can pay it forward now without affecting his own financial security. His finances are now balanced, and he's free to share his wealth. This is how Kate describes the Six of Pentacles in her book. She says, the card is charitable and giving. If we were to define it simply, it's about providing, supporting, and sharing with others. After the difficulty of the Five of Pentacles, the next card in the earthly cycle brings us the helping hands we need. Kate also has something interesting to say about the scales in the man's hand. She mentions that the giver has a scale that's balanced evenly in his hand. The question is, are we more balanced than we realize? At some point along the way, the compassionate giver in this card needed help too. We all have rotated between periods of lack and plenty. When this card comes up, challenge yourself to notice which position you're in now. Is it a time to give? Or is it a time to receive? Spirit might be hinting that in order to get what you want, it's time to surrender and give to receive. In episode 3 of this series, I talked about asking for help and why we find it so hard to receive help from others. I have a playlist in the show notes below called Healing with the Inner Tarot, and it's got all of the episodes so far if you want to check that one out to learn more about asking for help and receiving help from others. Kate's healing theme for this card is to be of service, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. I think it's very important to focus on giving to receive. But a few different things occurred to me when I really studied this card, and I have something else I want to talk about as well. And I'm going to link it all together throughout the show. So if we look back to the Six of Pentacles, the man in the red coat is standing while the beggars are on their knees. He seems to be almost acting as a savior in a way. It's very similar to the Hierophant card. So if we look at the Hierophant, it's about tradition, knowledge, and education. So if we think of the Six of Pentacles card, could this man be teaching these beggars a big life lesson? He may not just be acting charitably. He may be imparting some important life lessons to these two beggars. And further to that, this beggar here has what seems to be a piece of red cloth or paper in his pocket. I did some really extensive research trying to figure out if anyone talked about this red thing in his pocket, and I couldn't find anything about it. So I really thought about it. What could it represent? And the first thing that came to mind was that it's a red flag. But the beggar isn't paying close attention to it. It's almost like his back is to it. He's focused solely on those coins coming out of the man's hand. Now, we can't blame him. He needs money to survive. But this begs the question, did he ignore a red flag that put him in this position of poverty? And does the man in red represent the lesson that needs to be learned due to this beggar possibly ignoring a red flag? So that's what I'm going to focus on today. Ignoring red flags and how they can lead to devastating situations and a feeling of being trapped in our circumstances. I could talk for a month straight about red flags when it comes to emotions and dating and relationships and things like that, but that's going to be for another show. Maybe when we get to the cups, I'm not sure. So since we're in the Pentacles now, Pentacles are all about earthly matters. I'll focus on our health today because in Kate's book, the chapter on Pentacles is called In My Body. So I'm going to focus on ignoring red flags within our body, focusing on health. So let's dive into this. First of all, what is a red flag? Well, literally speaking, it's a flag that's red, right? I mean, no brainer there. But symbolically, a red flag is used to indicate danger or as a sign that you should stop. If you refer to something as a figurative red flag, it's basically a warning sign, right? It's a warning that something's not completely right and that you might be inviting danger. So if we look at this video, if you're on this beach and you see this red flag, it's a warning that maybe the current is too strong, that a big storm is on the way, or that something dangerous might be in the water. So, what happens if you choose to ignore this red flag? If you ignore the warning, you might be setting yourself up for a dangerous situation. Now, I thought I'd show you something dramatic just to make my point, but really we all ignore red flags at some point in our lives, and the results are usually not very positive. If we think of our health, I'm sure most of us can agree that we have ignored warnings about our health. We have ignored our body's red flags. I'm not a doctor, and I don't want to promote any kind of fear in anyone, so I'm not going to just provide a list of symptoms and what they can mean and what diseases and illnesses they might be, because that's not what I'm trying to do here. If we think of our mental and physical health, our bodies tell us what's wrong. And if we learn from this lesson that our body is trying to tell us, all the better. I mean, for example, I can give you an example right now of something that's happening to me. I have had lower back pain for weeks now. I just wanted to say, a friend of mine, her name is Angela, she mentioned that all it is my angel wings trying to come out. And I just wanted to mention that. I thought that was really cute, and I wanted to say thank you to Angela for saying that. It was really sweet. But basically, I have a hatch door that leads to my basement, and it's very, very heavy. It's like 8 feet long by 3.5 feet wide. It's a wooden door, and it does have these things called gas springs on it. And just to explain, so you know what I'm talking about, you know, imagine when you're opening the trunk of your car, there's 2 little springs on each side that make sure that the trunk door opens up slowly, and that when you push it closed, you have to put some pressure on it. I have gas springs on my trap door so that it doesn't just fly open and smash into the wall or into the window or something like that. And it goes down slowly so that if I don't have the handle held, it's not going to just slam right down on me or the pets or something like that, right? So it's tremendously heavy. And when you add the puppy factor to this equation, here's my little Benny bear. Well, I'll tell you what happened. Benny, the 10-month-old puppy, well, he's afraid of the basement, so he won't go downstairs, but he's fascinated that when I close the trap door, the basement disappears. It's very cute every time. So he tries to walk on the trap door as soon as I close it. Every time I open and close it, he does this, and I'm up and down in the basement every day. So one day I wasn't paying attention, and he walked on it before I had a chance to close it all the way down. Now, he weighs about 60 pounds, and I don't even know how much that trap doorways, but it's a lot. And boom, down it went. My hand was still holding the handle, and out went my lower back. Like, oh, you know, I have such an aching back. So that's why I have the pain. But it's not the first time that I've had back pain from doing something that I would normally be doing on a daily basis. I've pulled my back out just by gardening or by sleeping in a bad position. This has been going on for years, and I'm basically and admittedly ignoring a red flag. My back needs to get stronger as I age. Why am I ignoring this? I keep re-injuring my back. And it's not because I have problems with my back or I have weak bones and osteoarthritis or, you know, it's because I have weak muscles. I was going to say it's not because I don't have weak muscles. It's because I have weak muscles. All it takes is to build some muscles, you know, build some strength in my core, in my arms, and in my legs. And I know this. I used to be a bodybuilder. In my 20s, I was a gym bunny and I was in the gym every day. I know what I'm supposed to do. I have the equipment at home to do it. So why am I not doing it? I am ignoring that my body is screaming out this red flag that one day, Rain, pay attention now, one day your back might not recover. So why do we do this? Why do we ignore these red flags? Can you relate to this, my friends? Like, seriously, can you relate to something going on in your body? You know what you should do and you don't do it. Now, this isn't a big deal like heart palpitations, shooting pain up your left arm. You know, that's a huge red flag for a heart attack that I hope nobody will ignore. But this is like everyday stuff that we have to pay attention to. We ignore the very loud red flags that our bodies are shouting out. And eventually it can lead to devastation, right? If I became limited in my movement because of my back, I wouldn't have the quality of life and the lifestyle I want to lead. So, you know, I have pets, I have a garden, I do stuff around my house. I need a healthy back. So I need to get on this and strengthen my body. And I'll keep you posted on this because I feel like I need to be accountable for this. Is it laziness? I don't know what it is. It can't be a lack of time. If you want to do something, you're always going to make time to do it, right? Maybe deep down inside, I don't feel like doing it. But I'm not going to ignore this red flag anymore. I actually thought about doing a daily exercise live stream, but I don't think it would be possible for me to do that with all of my dogs running around. But I do need to be accountable, so I'm going to keep you guys posted on this one. Can you relate to those little aches and pains in your body? It's your body telling you to take action about something. I'll give you another personal example that I'm still kind of peeved at myself about. A few years ago, now maybe 5 years ago, I guess, I had a toothache and I ignored it because I'm terrified of dentists. Now, many of you can relate to having a bad experience at a dentist that caused you so much pain that you're afraid of them now. I actually had one in my teens. I called him the butcher. He was just horrible. He actually broke one of my molars one time and he had to pull it out. And another time I told him I had tremendous pain in one of my teeth and that cold water would send me through the roof. And what did he do? He sprayed cold water on my tooth. Like, why would you do that? Are you a sadist? Why would you do that? I just told you. Anyway, I'm getting off topic now. I was a teenager when I had this dentist and he was on my father's dental insurance. So I kind of had to go there because I couldn't afford to pay for dentistry as a teenager myself. But this really, really made me afraid of dentists. It's like a trauma memory or something like that. Anyway, as I was saying, about 5 years ago, I had a toothache that I ignored thinking, oh, it just must be because I'm grinding my teeth and I didn't put in my mouth guard. But it wasn't. It got worse and I waited and I waited. I was in denial. I was avoiding. The pain got so bad I couldn't function anymore. I got to the dentist. No cavities in that tooth. No tartar buildup. But I had a gum infection. It was severe. And because I waited so long, because I ignored my body's red flags screaming at me to get to the dentist, I lost the tooth. It couldn't be saved. And it was one of my molars. And that's something I can't get back because I honestly can't afford dental implants. They're like so expensive. So the dentist told me, Rain, wear your mouth guard every night without fail. And buy a water pick and use it daily. He told me brushing and flossing isn't enough. Can you believe that? That's what we think is enough. Brushing and flossing isn't enough. But sometimes, if you don't do it properly, or maybe sometimes I have a glass of wine before I go to bed and I'm too lazy to get up and brush my teeth, it can create little bits of bacteria in your mouth. And if you grind your teeth, like I do, your teeth move around. And so the bacteria can get under your gums, and that's where the gum infection starts, and that's what happened to me. So now I have a really crazy dental routine, and I'm going to show you what it is. I brush, I floss, I water pick, I use an antibacterial mouthwash, I brush again, and mouth guard in my mouth every night before bed. But guess what? Doing all of that, I don't have any more dental pain. I'm probably grind my teeth at night because I have post-traumatic stress disorder, and that's one of the things I do. But I haven't had any problems with my teeth in the last 5 years. So I'm really, really happy about that. So that's just another example of red flags that I ignored in my body that caused a devastating situation for me, because I don't have any molars left because of problems in the past. When I used to grind my teeth, I broke all my molars, and again, I couldn't afford implants, and so I have no molars left. Now I just kind of have to wait till that magic age of 65 where maybe the government will pay for partials in my teeth. It's a devastating situation not to be able to chew properly. And I can share some more personal examples of when people in my life ignored red flags. I had a favorite uncle, and he passed away many, many years ago of cancer. He was a lifelong smoker, and despite symptoms he was experiencing, like he was coughing, he had a lot of lung congestion, shortness of breath, and he told me he had tingling in his throat for like a couple of years. He refused to go to a doctor. He was like a tough guy. He was a truck driver, you know. He kept smoking despite all those things, and he knew the dangers, but he ignored the red flags, and he passed away from lung cancer. My grandfather too, he was a 3-pack-a-day smoker, and he died of emphysema. He knew the risks, but he decided he wanted to keep smoking. I myself had a bump under my nose here for many years. I just chalked it up to being a weird kind of mole. It was the color of my skin. It was just a weird bump. But it kept getting bigger and bigger, and then it started to bleed, and I tried to convince myself that it was nothing, and finally I saw a dermatologist who told me I had basal cell carcinoma. That's skin cancer. I was lucky because when they removed it and did the biopsy, it was benign, so the cancer cells didn't spread, thankfully. But you can bet that I check my body every day after my shower for moles to look at. I have a lot of moles on my body, so I look to make sure they haven't changed shape. I'm very consistent about that. And I do have a scar here. I don't know if you guys can see it, but it goes from here all the way down to here. There's a little white spot here. I'm very aware of it. I've become used to it, but it reminds me every day of basal cell carcinoma and not to ignore any red flags when it comes to skin cancer. I wear my hats in the summer. I wear long sleeves. I have sunscreen. I'm very, very careful not to get sunburnt. It happens once in a while, and I'm like, okay, Rain, be more careful. Remember, you had a basal cell carcinoma tumor. Don't forget about that. So, red flags in our body. If we think of mental health red flags, I'm very sure that a lot of us have done this. We've ignored those warning signs that our body has given us. Now, I did exactly the same thing before I burned out. There was a time when I just couldn't stop crying. My ears were, I've said this before, I wore my shoulders as my earrings because I was so tense all the time. I had terrible migraines from that. I had anxiety and panic attacks and insomnia. I was tired all the time. I was irritable. Those were all huge, huge mental health red flags that I completely ignored. And you guys know I burned out. So again, the question is why? Why do we ignore red flags when it comes to our health? Right? I just gave you guys, okay, my back, my teeth, basal cell carcinoma, burnout, my uncle, my grandfather. 4 out of those 6 was me ignoring the warning signs. And I look back and I think, what, Rain, what were you thinking? I wasn't thinking. There's actually a psychological term for this, and it's called health ignorance. It basically defines itself, we're being ignorant of our health. And there are many reasons why people will ignore these red flags or health warning signs. The first one is age. Depending on our age, our attitudes towards illness can cause us not to seek treatment. Maybe we feel, I'm too young for that. I'm too young to have a potentially serious illness. Or maybe we're of the generation that we feel the need to, take a stiff upper lip and say, I'm just going to deal with this. Or we blow it off to just aging, oh, my back is hurting because I'm getting old. Well, that's not necessarily the case. And I'm just thinking of this movie called Predator with Arnold Schwarzenegger. There's an actor in it called, his name is Jesse Ventura. He's a former wrestler. Big, muscly guy. And there was a scene when he got shot or he got injured and he was bleeding. And one of his compadres says, hey, you're bleeding, man. And he looks at him and he says, I ain't got time to bleed. Now that's total movie health ignorance. I just wanted to mention that because I thought about it. I ain't got time to bleed. Okay, back to the list. So the second cause of health ignorance could be financial status. Maybe we can't afford health insurance. We might be worried about taking time off for appointments or being unable to be able to work through a treatment that would keep us in bed and not earning a living. I'm sure this played into my decision not to see the dentist as well. I don't have dental insurance, and I'm sure you guys all can agree that dental care is extremely outrageously expensive. So a third cause of health ignorance could be shame and embarrassment. Now, I'm not joking. I'm being very serious here. Cancer is no joke, but I'm sure there are people out there who don't want anyone to know that they have colon cancer or testicular cancer or even breast cancer. I'm sure a lot of people ignore mental health red flags because they might feel shame that they have a mental health disorder as well. A lot of people don't want to admit that they have depression or panic or anxiety. It's a pride thing too, shame, embarrassment, pride. A fourth reason could be fear of diagnosis. And I could say that I probably have fear of diagnosis a lot of the time. But at this point in my life, I'd rather know early rather than when it's too late. But I can see how people might chalk up the symptoms as nothing if they just don't want to hear the bad news. But this can have such devastating consequences. Another reason, gender, culture, religion, and race. I spoke about this on another show, how I went to see a doctor when I was 17 years old because I felt like I was dying, and he told me it was all in my head. Little did I know I was suffering from anxiety and panic. So I guess as a woman, speaking as a woman, I often fear I won't be taken seriously by a doctor. I don't want any of my symptoms downplayed just because I'm a woman. And I'm sure some people fear not being taken seriously because of their race or their preferred gender association, right? Depending on a person's culture or religious beliefs, they may not feel it's right to see a doctor or a psychiatrist for help. Another reason, we don't trust ourselves. One of the biggest reasons for ignoring red flags is that we don't trust our own judgment. Perhaps you feel like something's wrong, but you blow it off. You might tell yourself, oh, I'm overreacting, or I'm only focusing on negative things. We don't want to admit that we could be sick. We don't want to disrupt our lives. Now, a seventh reason could be the red flags seem very minor. Like me, right? Oh, a little tooth pain, no big deal. Well, yeah, it was. Oh, a little bump under my nose, no big deal. Well, yeah, it was cancer, benign, thankfully. But our little aches and pains, or our moments of sadness and anxiety, they may not seem important enough for us to take action. So let's take another look at the beggar here on the Six of Pentacles card. Instead of seeing this red flag in his pocket as something he's ignoring, maybe now we can see it as the knowledge that he's gaining from the man giving him the coins. He's being taught that to ignore red flags can result in devastating consequences. And if we think about the next card, the Seven of Pentacles, there's a lot of contemplation that is needed. Thinking back and making good choices for ourselves with regards to our health. So this Six of Pentacles card, especially that little red flag in the beggar's pocket, really got me thinking about red flags with regards to our health. It got me thinking that we need to learn hard lessons sometimes. And then, of course, if we continue to ignore the red flags after we already know the lesson, it might be too late. So we should never, ever take our health or our good fortune for granted. Pay attention to your body. Now, going back to Kate's book, The Inner Tarot, with every card, she has a section called How to Connect with the Card. For the Six of Pentacles, she writes, be of service. The most giving souls are the ones filled with purpose. Lean into this card with humility, giving because you know what it feels like to be in need of a helping hand. So how can I link the fact that many of us ignore health warnings or red flags to being of service? Well, it's one thing to volunteer to help others, to give money to a good charity, or to send a gift or a letter to a friend, just to give, right? And then it's another thing to be of service to you, to be of service to yourself. If you don't have your health, you probably can't be of service to anyone. Now, Kate has some words she shares with regards to being of service to others, and I think it also applies to not ignoring red flags and being of service to yourself. This is how I'm trying to link it. Now, she says, notice how life could open for you more and appear more expansive if the energy is reciprocal, moving simultaneously toward you and away from you in balance. Now, she's referring to giving and receiving. But if we link my red flag ideas with her giving and receiving ideas, we are not giving ourselves the chance to receive treatment if we ignore red flags. If we can be of service to ourselves, of service to our health, we are in fact giving ourselves the gift of receiving treatment or receiving health. Does this make sense, my friends? I hope it does. It does in my head. I was trying to figure out how to link all of this together so that you could understand my train of thought, basically. Being of service to others is wonderful, very wonderful. I always say it's the gift of giving, imparting your knowledge and your friendship, your compassion, your wealth, your time. But do this for you first, okay? It's not being selfish in a bad way. Do it for you first. Don't forget yourself, and then be open to receiving the help and the treatment that you might need. And a chance for good health, you know, maybe even a second chance to live if you don't ignore health warnings in your body. So what can you do if maybe you perceive a health warning or a red flag with regards to your mental or your physical health? Well, I would say this is something that I do. Do a regular check-in. You can decide the frequency of your check-in. I do one weekly, but I do one daily with regards to the moles on my body. Actually, I would like you to challenge yourself right now. Stop the video and sit back and listen to your body and your mind and your emotions. I really want you to try this because I think it's going to be something good, and do it regularly. Ask yourself, for example, do you feel any aches or pains in your body? And where are these aches and pains located? Ask yourself, how are you feeling motivation-wise? Are you feeling a lack of motivation, or do you feel motivated? Are you feeling energetic today, or are you feeling tired and fatigued and worn out? What's your mood like? How are you feeling? Are you happy? Are you angry? Are you sad? Are you nervous? Are you frustrated? Try to feel that. Try to put a name to it. What emotion might be lingering in your body or maybe present right now? Just like your mood, maybe you're feeling angry, that emotion of anger. Or maybe you have an emotion of just tranquility. Ask yourself, how are you eating? How's your digestion? And yes, my friends, how's your bathroom time? It's very important to ask yourself stuff like that. Do you notice anything different in your skin, in your hair, or your nails? You can add more to this check-in list in between check-ins. Keep note of things. Maybe you had a headache or a bad morning in the bathroom, or maybe even a moment where you felt irritable and frustrated. And look back on that list and see if it's something that's reoccurring. Now, the second part of the check-in is ask yourself why. All of the things that you wrote in the first section, ask yourself why you're feeling that way, why you feel that pain or that discomfort. Why is your digestion not spot on? My example is, why is your back hurting? It could be like me. You pulled a muscle lifting something heavy while a little puppy jumped on that heavy thing at the same time. But if you can't find the why and it keeps persisting, that's probably a red flag. For example, the little bump under my nose. I don't know why it was there. It was itchy a lot of the time, and it started to bleed and it got bigger. I don't know why it was there. That was a big red flag that I ignored. So if you can find the why, then it may not be something that's life-threatening, but if you can't, it's probably a big red flag for you. And you need to be of service to yourself to get yourself checked out, or in my case, if this back problem continues, even if I'm doing weights or even if I'm stretching every day or doing some gentle yoga, I'm not going to ignore it. I'm going to give myself the gift of education and learn everything I can. I wouldn't say I'm going to replace, WebMD with a doctor's visit, but it's a good idea to try to start figuring out what you can do to help yourself first if you don't think it's something life-threatening like a sore muscle, something like that. But don't ignore red flags. It's really, really important that you give yourself that gift to be able to have treatment or to be healed. So then you can go through each of the points on your list. Why am I lacking motivation? And it's not just negative things. When you ask yourself, am I feeling energetic or fatigued? Maybe you're feeling energetic, and ask yourself, why are you feeling energetic? Then list all of the great things that you're doing that keeps you feeling energized. See, it's not just all about the negatives. So the why is important to try to pinpoint if this is something that needs to be addressed or something that has a real cause. Like if you have a headache because you had too many pina coladas the other night, that's not something you probably need to go to a doctor for, because the headache is caused by the overdose of pina coladas. You get the point I'm trying to make. So the third part of the check-in is ask yourself, what do I need to do to address this? If you don't need to do anything but sleep off a hangover, then okay, problem solved. But if you have ongoing migraines that keep popping up for no apparent reason, then you need to address it. Again, be of service to you. Give yourself a chance to receive help, then take action. Here's an example. My digestion is poor, but you can't figure out why. Okay? So you need to ask yourself, what do you need to do to address this? Well, in my case, this is true. My digestion is poor. So I'm very, very certain it has to do with something I'm eating. In my case, I'm doing an elimination diet. I'm cutting out certain foods to see if that's what's causing my pain when I reintroduce them. I may have food allergies. I might just have food intolerances. There may be some foods that I can't eat together, or I can't eat 2 days in a row. It's extremely frustrating. But if the elimination diet doesn't help, you can bet I'm not ignoring that red flag. I'm going to go see a doctor because I want to address it to find out why this is happening to me. So that's what I do every week. That's my weekly check-in with my body. Kate has a section in her book for every card called Deeper Reflection. Now, in her Deeper Reflection for the Six of Pentacles, she suggests that you explore your relationship with people-pleasing or holding a savior role. Now, just a note, I have an entire episode on people-pleasing. It's episode 2, and it's in the playlist that I linked in the show notes in the description below, so check that out if it interests you. Now, she suggests further, journal about the people you show up for and the way they reciprocate or don't. Then go a few layers deeper in this healing. Write and reflect. Am I a people pleaser? If so, when and why did that behavior start? What am I worthy of receiving without feeling like I have to give something first? I have a link to an article that you might find interesting. It's called 10 Red Flags You Should Pay Attention to When It Comes to Your Mental Health. It's a really good article, and we should never ignore any red flags in our body and also for our mental health. The link is in the description below if you're interested in that. So now I have some general Six of Pentacles journal prompts for you. And again, these will be listed in the downloadable PDF workbook that I have in the description as well. They're from the book Journaling with the Tarot. The first prompt is, what aspect of yourself have you been ignoring and why? How is your patience being tested? How is fear constraining your life? How are you sharing your gifts? I have a book called Trauma Healing Journal, and in this series every week I share a specific trauma healing prompt with you. The prompt I'm sharing this week is under the heading Dietary and Health Choices, and here's the prompt. How do you maintain a healthy balance between nurturing your body and your emotional healing? This is really important, my friends, because if we are going through emotional healing, sometimes we completely forget about maintaining our self-care, our nutrition, and our exercise. So figure out how you can balance all of that to keep yourself the healthiest you can be. Now I would like to pull a few oracle cards to emphasize the idea of being of service to yourself. These cards come from the Whispers of Healing Oracle deck. I pulled the Give Back card and the Receive Healing cards. I pulled the Give Back card in episode 4 when I was talking about holding on too tight to things, but I think in this episode it flows very well with the Receive Healing card. The Give Back card is filled with happiness and wonder. We have a beautiful rainbow-like color background, and it flows perfectly into the Receiving card because the colors are really, really similar. The Give Back card message is that you need an interruption in your life. And if we link this to being of service to ourselves, we can go back to my suggestion of a regular check-in with your body and your mind. You need to interrupt your life and check in with yourself. Give yourself that gift of awareness and that gift of observation. The Receive Healing card shows a beautiful angel who is sending healing energy to a young woman. The angel's wings are enchanting and they're so magical. She's encouraging you to soar, to address what you need to heal so that you can receive the help. Be open to it. Be open to helping yourself. Whether your wounds are physical, mental, emotional, or spiritual, you may need the support of someone who can help you face your concerns. Trust yourself to find that help that will best support your needs. Now, the guidebook says to look at the angel's wings, and the first color that catches your eye, concentrate on it and work with the chakra that is associated with that color. And I'll give you a moment to look at this card so that you can focus on the color that catches your eye first. And just in passing, maybe the chakra that you're supposed to be looking into, maybe that's where you might have a red flag going on in your body or in your mind. So that's something to keep in mind. I wanted to show you this. This is just a little bonus here. These are the colors associated with each chakra. I'll leave a link in the show notes to a web page that describes the chakras and what you can do to work with each one of them. It's called A Beginner's Guide to the 7 Chakras and How to Unblock Them. Every episode, I pull a card for the collective to kind of give us a general message with regards to the subject of the show. So today I'm using the Hush Tarot by Jeremy Hush, and I pulled the High Priestess card. The High Priestess's wisdom is balanced. She is attuned to what is hidden below the surface. So my friends, she knows what's going on in her body. She possesses a keen sense of intuition and the ability to discern right from wrong. In other words, she doesn't ignore those little red flags. She's wise and she's ready to take care of herself. Let's keep her in mind when we start to say things like, oh, it's just a little bump under my nose, or I'm in a funk and it'll go away on its own, or no way in hell I'm taking work off to go see a doctor just because I have a little lump under my arm. Right? Let's remind ourselves of the High Priestess and her wisdom and her intuition, and that she doesn't ignore those health red flags. So we're nearing the end of the episode. Let's talk about the key points that we should be keeping in mind with regards to this episode. Now, the first key point is giving and receiving is more than just being of service to others. It's about being of service to ourselves. Number 2, ignoring red flags with regards to our health can have permanent and devastating consequences. Number 3, health ignorance is a real thing, and we need to reverse it by paying attention to our bodies and being brave enough to face reality. Number 4, a regular check-in with ourselves can build self-awareness about what's going on with our physical and mental health. It will help us to observe what we're feeling in our bodies. And number 5, journaling can help us become aware of why we ignore health concerns and warnings. That's our show for today, my friends. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope some of it resonated with you, and I hope it helped someone out there who needed to hear some of these things today. Please leave me a comment. I love your comments. I love the interaction. It's been so much fun getting to know people. Share this with anyone you think might enjoy it or might get some help from it, or you think it might resonate with them. Like, subscribe, hit the notification, all that YouTube-y stuff. That really helps me a lot. I so appreciate you, my friends. Next week, we'll be talking about the 7 of Pentacles. So until then, I'm tapping my heart, sending you lots and lots of love, and I'll see you then. Bye.